I love horror movies. I love the tension. I love the complex writing. I love uncomfortability translated to film, which is why I'm their biggest hater. No one critiques something harder than someone who wants it to be good and knows it absolutely could be. And there are certain horror movie tropes that will make me mentally check out of a movie almost immediately. Trope number one, jump scares that are just loud. If your horror movie scares me by suddenly blasting a noise at max volume, that's not fear, that's an ambush. Real fear builds. It creeps. It sits with you. It does not yell boo like it's mad at me. The sudden release of tension that's been worked on, with absolutely no consequences most of the time, to be blunt, fucking sucks. Trope number two, no one believes her / crazy woman trope. My second least favorite trope is when the main character, usually a woman, is like, there's something very wrong here. And everyone else is like, have you tried calming down even though your evidence may or may not make sense? The house is haunted, the vibes are evil, and somehow she's still the problem. Now, don't get me wrong, these tropes can be used properly. Stranger Things pulls this off perfectly with Winona Ryder's character, Joyce Byers. In season 1, specifically. But when you overlap these tropes and use them lazily, it completely ruins everything the writers and directors are trying to build. Trope number 3. Horrible, almost comical decision making. Nothing removes fear faster than characters making choices so stupid they feel illegal. Oh no, we're being chased, let's split up. Why? Trope number 4. Over-explaining the monster. If you give me lore charts, ancient texts, along with a full origin story, that thing is no longer scary. The unknown is the horror. Stop answering questions I didn't ask and making me feel stupid. Why this is a problem. Horror dies when it gets lazy. These tropes aren't evil, they're just overused. They feel like shortcuts, and fear doesn't work well when it's rushed. Analog horror, our last hope. This is why analog horror is so dangerous, because when it's done right, it's absolutely terrifying. Analog horror doesn't scare you by jumping out. It scares you by making you feel like you're watching something you shouldn't be. The tape itself knows you exist. You miss some kind of instruction, and it's already too late. The fear is quiet, and quiet horror lasts. The problem is, analog horror is incredibly easy to mess up, because suddenly everyone thinks static equals scary, or distorted faces equals scary, or some kind of VHS filter equals a story. No. Static is not a plot, glitches are not character development, and distorted audio is not tension by default. Everything essentially can be boiled down to tropes and laziness that take the power out of storytelling in this way. Analog horror fails when it feels like, look how creepy this thing is, and succeeds when it feels like, this wasn't meant for anyone. Why this moment matters. We're at a point where analog horror will either A, become one of the most effective horror formats we've ever heard of, or become the next thing that gets completely ruined by overuse, and horror cannot survive another aesthetic-only phase. It needs intention, restraint, and creators who trust the audience to sit with discomfort. I don't want horror movies to startle me. I want them to sit in my brain and quietly ruin my week. So yeah, if your movie relies on tropes I've seen 1,000 times, I'm probably not interested. But if you give me something patient, unsettling, and just a little wrong, I'm in, fully and unfortunately.